Okay, guys, alternate ending. Take 43.
With so many movies on the net and TV, it's kind of hard being up and film savvy. Do you catch a show while you're on the go? And how do you know what to keep or what to throw? How do you know what to keep or what to throw? Tune in, tune in, tune in to alternate ending. Tune in, tune in, tune in to alternate ending. Tune in, tune in, tune in to alternate ending. Tune in, tune in, tune in to alternate ending now. Please give a warm welcome to the hosts of Alternate Ending.
Welcome to Alternate Ending, where we're discovering good movies one bad movie at a time. I'm your host, Carrie Jarsinski, and today I'm joined by a highly regarded friend of mine, Tim Brayton. And
thank you. Now, am I highly regarded as your friend, or just I am highly regarded and I am your friend?
It's both. It's both. It's all around.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I know. I'm coming in nice because it's been a few weeks, but I'm also joined by so many other exciting people. And it's like a tiny bit anxiety producing because I always feel like if all goes wrong, I can edit it out. It can be edited out, but not today because we have a live audience with us. Our AE Patreon community is joining us here today, kind of as a pilot of sorts. Because again, if this is just like too much,
that was a pun.
It wasn't, but it's just getting us off to the right start because we're here today because of both the love and disdain of Patreon supporter Gavin McDowell, and he has asked us to share our top 5 Pontius Pilate movies. What does that mean? I don't know.
Does he want us to share our top 5 Pontius Pilate movies or our top 5 Pontius Pilates?
It's both, Tim. It's also both for that.
Okay.
It's like, it's a very broad, the more I thought about it, I was like, it's really a broad set of criteria.
I have to imagine your criteria were pretty broad for this one, yes.
It is.
I think you had to scrounge.
I casted a wide net, but we'll get there. And so for our friends joining us for the live show right before the break, we'll turn to you for questions or reactions. Won't be looking at those because, like I said, I'm very easily distracted. But at the end, also, we will turn it back to you again to hear about some of your favorite Pontius Pilate movies as well, if you have them on your lists. So other than that, sorry, this is just a little bit of an apology too. I don't even know what's happened. I think it's been 3 or 4 weeks. So much has happened that I don't even really know where to start. It was like a little bit of an unplanned break, but I can't even, I tried to go back through and be like, what happened since last we talked? And it's so much. So I don't even know where to begin.
When was our last episode? Did we do an episode how has it been 4 weeks?
I don't know.
It feels like it's been 4 weeks.
It feels like it's been 3 or 4. And I think it may have been a Pass the Popcorn that we had done with Zev. I think that was our last one. And then just everything went nuts. I don't even, again, know where to begin. So I had an idea. And I want you to do the same thing if you can for me. So kind of be a little bit selective. I did sort of a highlight reel of little blurbs. And what I'd like you to do is just really loudly or semi-loudly, just maybe in your regular voice.
I'm really confused right now. What in the hell are you going?
I'm going to ask you to say pause. If you're I want to hear more about that
thing. So you're going to give me a menu
list.
And I get to choose.
Yes.
What if I choose everything off the menu?
You can't, because it will end up
What if I just treat it like a buffet and I want a little spoonful of everything?
Just a little dab. That's how I eat at a buffet. I never grab very much of anything. It's just
you try one of each.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
A tablespoon of cottage cheese, a tablespoon of potato salad, just enough, and then fill the whole plate. But you can't do that today. Today, really, you just kind of maybe 2. In your mind, think about.
So this is more like a wedding reception than going to Golden Corral.
Yes. I
am going to be limited in my choices.
Yes. But in both cases, you might have diarrhea after hearing this episode.
God willing.
And I'll throw the same to you because maybe you should even start because I feel like you said life's been chaotic for you too. I don't even know where you can begin.
Life has only really been chaotic for me briefly, so I don't have blurbs. I only have
Tell me your thing though.
One.
What's been keeping you busy?
Well, let's just put it this way. You're perhaps familiar with this euphemism, I was visited by my Aunt Flo this week,
Oh,
by which I mean I had ants flowing out of a heat vent in my bedroom and all the way up the wall.
oh no. Is
I
it
had
'cause
an ant
they're-
infestation.
Oh no. Okay. So I'm not going to cut you off because I want to hear the story. I also have an ant infestation and I haven't told Rob yet because he's going to
Oh,
freak
dear.
out, but it's happening. So I just keep vacuuming every day and then I let him outside. I just like empty the vacuum outside, but I haven't told him because I want to deal with it with like borax and soap, and he will bring in an exterminator. He will burn this house down if he knows there's ants. So I haven't told him yet.
That
So-
well, he'll be finding out in several hours when he goes to edit this audio into an episode, won't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he will be. I'm going to figure out how to handle that. I don't know. But first, what did you do to deal with your ants? Because I don't really know what to do.
Okay, well, I will agree with you on borax. That is a way to go. And in the chat, I am reading that apparently if you feed ants yeast,
Uh-huh.
they will explode.
Oh.
And now I have the idea of this like sort of horrible World War I battlefield, which is like the carcasses of erupted ants all over.
That
It
sounds
sounds
awful.
very, very exciting. Oh, they specifically have to eat jelly first. So the
Okay.
sugar and the jelly
Sure,
interacts with the yeast. I got it.
Sounds
But
horrifying.
no, so my situation, keep in mind, I rent. I rent 1/4 of a 110-year-old building, basically. So it's very old. The ants were coming up specifically through the cold air return.
Mhm.
So I popped off the vent and it was full of fucking ants, sure enough. So what I did, I put 4 of those borax traps inside the cold air return
Uh-huh.
after having, first off, so this happened. I woke up one morning at 6, which is early for me. I'm sure it's not early for you. You have children. But my cats were meowing in a weird way, and I heard like this kind of rattling noise. It sounded like rain. Turned out to be the sound of flying ants smacking against my window. So this is 6:30 in the morning. The cats are trying to eat the ants. The ants are flying. It's all great. The only thing I had in my house was Windex. So I just started spraying my walls down with Windex, which killed the ants and also made my house reek of ammonia. So I cleared out the ant carcasses.
Mm-hmm.
Having done that, having gotten them killed out of the cold air return, I laid down those borax traps, and then I taped using 3 layers of duct tape the entire vent closed,
Okay.
so that they could not escape. And that was 3 days ago, and it seems to be good so far.
Right.
Now, because you have a house
Yeah.
and you have access to the entire house, I would consider following Rob's lead and just burning it to the ground.
Yeah.
That might be the right call. I
There's
would
so
consider
many.
fumigating.
Yeah,
honestly.
I know. If I could vacuum out, I'm trying to do the ethical thing and just try and let as many out as
Murder
I can.
them, kill them,
I
kill the
will
ants. I
eventually.
learned something important about myself. I am capable of committing murder because I want to see my enemies suffer. Like I was,
Yeah.
so I cleaned my bedroom. I'm in the process of cleaning my bedroom. And so I'm basically shoving stuff away from one corner of the wall and spot cleaning the carpet and then shoving stuff back. So my bedroom is going to be the cleanest it's been since I moved in, and that'll be very exciting. But like as I was on the ground, like scrubbing my carpet, because I wasn't able to fit a whole shampooer in there, so I had to do it by hand. If I saw an ant, I like went for it. I like picked it up and like crushed it between my finger and my thumb and sort of
That's
laughed
dark.
as I did so.
That's dark. Yeah.
I have bloodlust in me,
Okay.
is what I've learned in the last week. Do not treat these ants
With
like they
care?
are god creatures.
Okay.
They're vile beasts.
They're all
and you
just
must
so
kill
little.
them.
They're like little baby ones, which makes you feel even worse. But
No, it makes you feel better. It means you're snuffing them out before they have risen to ant adulthood to
all
become
right.
their truest, evilest
Well,
selves.
I will keep you posted on that. There's trails they're forming, and Rob's just like, "Why are you're not usually so clean?" And I'm like, you know what? I'm trying to.
Well, wait,
turn
are
over a
the
new
ants
leaf.
coming into your kitchen?
Yeah, and our
They want-
bedroom.
So your kitchen needs to be not full of shit.
Well, we have snacks everywhere. I mean, our kids leave crumbs everywhere in our house. So like I keep finding like little piles and they're like attached to a Cheerio. And then it's like, oh, so I vacuum that.
Have
up.
you considered getting rid of the children?
It's my backup before killing the ants for sure. is to just pop those out of the house and then we'll see what happens. So I've got options, but I will keep you posted on that one. I didn't even add that to my...
Just to round off my catastrophic week. I was getting like 3 and 4 hours of sleep routinely because I was sleeping on my couch because my bed was like propped up against the wall. So it's only been 2 consecutive nights now that I've actually like slept. So when I texted you before the episode, Carrie, to say that I'd slept 12 hours, that was not me being like, man, I'm such a indigent, lazy summertime grad student. I slept 12 hours. That was me getting caught up on the like 8 hours of sleep I'd had the previous 5 days combined.
Okay.
Basically.
And that hasn't happened to me. I actually am not, but like if I found ants crawling on me, I think I'd be fine. Like it doesn't gross me out. It doesn't keep me up at night.
Bite. I have so many bug bites on me.
Oh, you do? Oh, they don't go after me.
I've got welts up on my leg. It's awful.
See, these ones are really gentle. They just kind of tickle like as they run across you. These ones don't bite that I have. So I'm holding on to mine, but I've been getting a lot of sleep too. So.
I'm just gonna say I'm on Team Rob. If Rob says this house needs to be burned down to the foundations and rebuilt to get rid of the ants, I think he's correct.
All right. Well, this one didn't even make my list of random things that have happened over the last 3 weeks or 3 or 4 weeks. Hasn't even grazed the list. So that should probably tell you just how bad it's been. How bad it's been.
All right. Okay, I am ready for your...
Are you ready?
Now, are you going to go through your list twice so I can hear everything?
No.
Or do I have to just pick and choose?
Here's the thing. This is where it gets tricky. Don't get like trigger happy. I don't know if that's the word, but you're going to be
no, that's what I'm saying. Like I need to be strategic, but what if you go through your list and I don't hear anything that sounds more exciting than ants?
There's some other things in here, trust me, that are more exciting than ants. But again, right now, right out of the gate, you're going to be like, I want to know more about that. I'm just going to caution, a little bit of a tip. Don't be deceived. It gets worse.
Okay. So have you tried to rank these in escalation?
No, it's randomized.
It's randomized. Okay.
Yes.
And the word I'm using is pause.
Yes. You just say pause and you get 2. Okay.
I get 2.
You get 2. Yeah.
Good Lord.
Some of these are long stories and people have things to do. They can't sit around on this podcast
no
all
one
day.
gives a shit about what we talk about movie-wise. People only care about the catastrophes in your personal life.
No one wants our Pontius Pilates. They just want our life catastrophes. All right. I'm going to start. Okay. So again, be careful. Be careful. Coming in at number 1, left my job after 17 years. All right. I'm going to give you 1 second pause. Headed to LA for a week. Met 3 of my lifelong heroes. All right.
All right.
Toured the WB lot. Dinner.
Pause.
Well, that is the lamest. You can't have that one.
Okay. I knew about your job. The job didn't come as news to me.
I forgot I told you about that. The toured the WB lot is like so boring. It's like the most boring thing.
Well, then I unpause. Go ahead.
The only reason I wanted to tell you about that is all I was going to say is you have to do that. That's the only thing I was going to say. We did do that and everybody was rioting and on strike. And so we were like putting our sunglasses and hats on like as we were riding around in the little golf cart because we were like, we support you, but we're also on vacation. So we're taking this like little tour to see all of the like really cool like behind the scenes, like where they filmed Jurassic Park. Like you can see all of that, like where they filmed Gilmore Girls, which I never watched shockingly, but like you can see all of the set pieces for all of that. And like every costume that's been in like every movie since the beginning of time. Like it's really, really cool. And the whole time I was there, I was just like, Tim would just eat this whole thing up. Like you would absolutely love it. So that's what I was going to say is you got to do that.
Do you see what I did though?
What?
I just got you to talk about it without using one of my pauses.
Oh, see, that's tricky. That's tricky. No, at least it was a short one because some of them are more dramatic. Okay. Dinner with the Love Witch, American Horror Story, Naomi Grossman, road trip to Ohio.
Wait. Are you giving me the one pause in between? Because it sounds like you're doing rapid fire now.
Okay, sorry. Pause. Dinner with the Love Witch, American Horror Story, Naomi Grossman, road trip to Ohio, and my dad thought and accused me of murdering my nephew.
Pause.
Did somebody hit the doorbell or no?
If you are on the line, maybe just hit mute really quick. So quick side note. So this is a good one. This is going to be the best story maybe of your life because it's all factual, it's all true, and it's horrifying. So all right, pause on this one. So road trip to Ohio. Rob is filming the last 2 segments of Hauntology. So he's in Ohio for 3 weeks. So he's down there for a week by himself. And
meanwhile, you're just hosting an ant orgy and he knows none of what's going on.
Exactly. This is what I love when he comes home to disasters. So we decided that was way too long for Dad to be away. So we decided we're going to then pile into the car as a family, head down, be there on site, hang out with him like during the day as much as we could, go to set, make a whole thing of it. So while we're there, I decided I'm going to take my 2 nephews with me. They're like the same age as our girls. I love them very, very much. And my sister won't listen to this. My sister's a little bit of a stick in the mud. So I was like, I love nothing more than being the cool aunt. Like, I'm the one that's like, I'm going to like say yes to everything. I took them to Cedar Point, which is a whole other thing. We went on all the rides. Like, we did everything. And you don't
strike me as being a roller coaster type.
The most. I know. It's shocking. I will do anything. And I love it. It's like, I thought about maybe moving to Sandusky, Ohio, because I just want to go there every day. I just love it so much. So part of this is she's kind of a stickler on food. Like, she wants them to be eating fruits and vegetables and things of that sort. Maybe a little dairy in there. But when it comes to sugar, their sugar is like Honey Nut Cheerios. Like, here, you can have a little sprinkle of Honey Nut Cheerios.
Boo.
Boo. I know. That's what I say. Boo. So whenever they come to my house, I'm like, everything you want. There's no rules. There's candy everywhere. So anyway, we get there and the new rules started right out of the gate. And I think it was the second night in, we went on set and there was a whole concession stand that was set up on movie set. And my nephew Andrew was just hitting the red vines hard, just like real hard. And I was like, you know what? I should say something. Like, I should be an adult and I should say something to him about like serving size of like maybe only 5 servings of red vines. But I didn't. I just let him keep going. I was like, I'm going to help him self-regulate. He's going to do it on his own. So anyway, that night, I had a lot of trouble falling asleep and I get like really bad night anxiety. I don't exactly know what it is, but like if I do wake up in the middle of the night, I ponder everything I've ever said and done that might have offended somebody, or I start to think about like things I'm behind on or like my future. Like I think about all these things that I don't know. I get really worried in the middle of the night. So anyway, this starts the story of I wake up in the middle of the night to this pouring sound. This like, that didn't sound like that. It just sounded like pouring. And again, middle of the night, I'm a catastrophizer. I'll tell you, my first thought, I was like, my dad has prostate cancer. And I think...
That's your first thought?
I was laying in bed. I'm like, do I get up and acknowledge that my dad has prostate cancer in the middle of the night? Because I hear this sound, which I assumed was diarrhea. And so then I jumped to, is diarrhea a symptom of prostate cancer?
It's a symptom of eating a whole fucking bag of red vines.
So, I immediately think it's my parents, though. I'm like, one of my parents is dying. I'm going to have the other one live with me. It's just a matter of time. This all happens in like 30 seconds. I've thought out this whole situation. But so I decide, do I go out and like go in when my dad has diarrhea and is like, do I react?
No.
But I did. I decided to do something about it. I was going to be like, Dad, it's okay. We're here for you. I was going to stand by the door and do that. So I opened the door. Thank God it's not my dad. He doesn't have prostate cancer. It's my nephew. He is just...
Does your nephew have prostate cancer?
I hope not. But he does have sugar belly. So he is vomiting everywhere. There's just red splatter like everywhere. And if I see puke, I'll puke. So I'm standing behind him. I'm rubbing his back and I'm like dry heaving next to him. And he's like, and Carrie, I'm so sorry. And I'm so sorry. I'm like, I'm a bad aunt. I let you eat all those red vines. And I was
Did you puke on his head?
I was like puking in my mouth and I was stopping it. And so then I like didn't know what to do. I'm closing my eyes because I can't see it either or I'll puke. So I'm like trying to like flush the toilet like this, but without looking at it. And then I run back and I wake up Rob and I'm like, Rob, like Andrew barfed everywhere. You need to clean it up. So he's like dazed and like getting out of there. I thought it was like really contained. Like I thought he hit the toilet. So I was like, Andrew, you're fine. Like I took him back downstairs. Stairs were like a little moist, but in the middle of the night, I didn't think anything of it. And so then Rob's in there. He's like cleaning the whole thing down. And I was like, whew, like nobody will know. And we're in this lady's Airbnb. I'm like, nobody will ever know. Meanwhile, my mom walks out. She opens the door like sleepily. And it's just like, is the bathroom free? And I was like, no, Andrew threw up. And she's like, oh, that's too bad. And just goes back to bed. I was like looking around like, Grandma, that's your reaction? I don't even think she was fully awake. So then it gets worse. My dad, who thankfully, again, does not have prostate cancer now, so I just have this wave of relief, comes out, actually hits the light. Now we're like, I've gotten him back to bed. I'm in bed. I'm like just trying to fall back asleep, like come down from this like adrenaline rush of what's happened. My dad flips on the light. I just hear, oh God, like from the other room. And his reaction is, did somebody murder somebody? Did somebody get killed in here? And I was like, your reaction is somebody has gotten murdered. So I come out. The walls, it's like Dexter. Like the walls are just like dripping red. The floor is like covered in red liquid. And we go into the bathroom. The whole shower curtain is like,
oh God damn it.
This is red. And I was like, he's like, oh, Carrie, did Andrew get murdered? Is his like first reaction. I'm like, no. And then again, I won't go into it, explained what had happened. Does anybody help? No. My dad just goes to the bathroom around the situation and like heads back to bed. So needless to say, I did not sleep well the rest of that night, knowing I was just like, none of this is going to come out. This Airbnb is just going to charge us because we've literally ruined their home. And in the morning, I was just like, Andrew, like a good aunt would do. I was like, Andrew, that was a tough night. It was my fault. Don't feel bad. Don't tell your mom.
Obviously. I thought you were going to say that you made him wake up and clean up the house.
No. I made Rob do that. I made Rob do all that. I was like, get the walls, get the floor. But it was a Dexter situation. It was everywhere. So both hilarious and traumatizing. On so many
Does your
levels.
sister know this happened?
No, she never will.
Okay.
I'm not planning on telling her. It's one of those little like, if she asked me, I'd probably like white lie my way around it.
Like if she asked you point blank, did you give Andrew so many red vines that he puked?
Yeah.
You would say yes. But if she did not ask that exact set of words,
exactly,
you would find some way around it.
Exactly. That's what I would do.
Okay.
And even if she specifically said red vines, he did eat other sugar items. There was Laffy Taffy. There was pop. There was all this kind of other stuff.
Was it red Laffy Taffy?
Yeah. Yeah. Everything was red. He was having a red 7-Up. Everything he had was red.
Was he like filling himself up on that like specific color of red dye that's actually bad for you?
Yeah. Probably so. Poor kid. Again, terrible aunt. I felt so bad about it. He still loves me the most, but still, I feel bad that I let it happen. So
okay, you should. You failed miserably.
I know.
As a caregiver.
I know. He had a good time still. We still went to Cedar Point. We still made it there. Probably that was the next thing on my list, Cedar Point. I don't know if you've been there. I was going to tell you about that. Probably.
Well, I have not. And I will say, I know you don't want to be distracted by what's going on in the chat. Someone has raised the question about roller coasters. Do you want to talk roller coasters now, or do you want to talk roller coasters at the break? You sort of teased.
No, we can talk roller coasters. I that was on my list, and really
I want to make it clear this is not my pause. This is Mandy's pause. I'm still holding on to my last pause.
I see. I think it should be. Actually, we'll hold it. But I was going to say Cedar Point was next, and that story was so long that maybe you only get one pause.
That is not the deal we made.
That is not the deal we made. The other ones are boring. It was Cedar Point, fourth best day of my life, and then Wisconsin Dells with 10 kids. I don't think where I immediately actually lost them. But again, you're not going to care because you don't care if kids are lost. Other people care, but you don't. So I think you either go back to another interesting one, or because that story was absurdly long, we can move on to.
Well, it sounded like it was going to be too touchy-feely and kind for my tastes, but let's go back to the one where you met people you admire in Los Angeles.
Oh, that is such a good one. I'm glad you went back to that one. So I'll try to make this really brief, but it was, I will never probably move to LA or want to live in LA because it's like the farthest from the lifestyle I could live. It's like, there's just...
So you could live in like a mud hut in sub-Saharan Africa before you could live in LA.
Honestly, I think I would. I
heard a story. This is not my story. This is a story in law, basically. But yesterday I was on a 2-hour road trip to rural Wisconsin and was regaled with the story of my partner's friend when she was doing her grad student work, her research trip to study lemurs in Madagascar. She was staying in a home that was basically a large cube made out of cinder blocks that had been turned into a duplex by putting a tarp in the middle of the cinder block. And the couple that was staying in the other half of the cinder block box the woman went into labor and had a baby while the grad school friend was trying to fall asleep.
Oh, and wow.
And apparently she like very vividly heard the placenta like slopping onto the ground.
I don't think you would hear a placenta slopping.
Apparently there's
a
big wet thudding noise at one point right before the baby started crying.
Okay. That
so
maybe
I'm saying,
is
that how you would rather live than Los Angeles?
Yes. Also that. I think so. LA for me, again, I'm fine with things that are dirty. My house is a mess. But there was just like poop everywhere. And I just like, I don't pay attention. I get kind of lost when I'm walking around. It's just like stepping in poop all day. And I was like, I don't love that. And then I just felt like it was really, I don't know, it was really crowded, really dirty, lots of traffic. And maybe it's just where we were. I don't know, because we were trying to stay in somewhere that wasn't so expensive, but it was so expensive everywhere. Like the place that we were staying in was not great, but it was still so expensive. And it's just, I don't know. It's not my vibe, but I'm going to spin it to something positive. I told you I met 3 of my lifelong heroes. I got to meet Brennan Klein in person for the first time.
And Brennan Klein is someone who's been one of your heroes for your entire life.
Yeah. He always comes to my rescue. Every time I mess anything up, he's always like, I'll fix it. And honestly, as a service love language, that hits hard for me. I was just like, he's the best. Rob was like, you could only be gone for 1 hour or we're going to be late. So I was gone for 2 hours. And then I went home. It was worth the extra hour. It was worth being late. We had such a nice time. He's so much fun. I also got to see listener Caleb Wimble and his partner Eric in person, which was super, super cool. Longtime listeners of the show. They were at a dinner that Rob had planned and had joined us. And they're hilarious and sweet and so fun. And so that was also very exciting. And then I got to meet Harrison Ford, which was probably the pinnacle of my entire trip. Minus the aforementioned
I think that is super
others.
rude to Brennan.
That's what I'm saying. I said minus the aforementioned people that I saw. Yes.
Okay.
Best moment of my life, third best moment of my life. I scavenged the entire city and I found his star on the ground.
Oh, you didn't even meet proper Harrison Ford.
No, he's not going to talk to me. He's too cool. But I found his star and I took so many pictures like a weirdo. It was very crowded. Everybody just kept walking on his star. Like it was just any star. And I was just like, move around, people. Like, step around this thing. Like, do you even know what you're doing? Do you know what you're stepping on? So I sort of just like shepherd people away, kind of like got them off of it and then just took all the pictures that I possibly could. But like, people weren't even really keeping it clean. There was like a piece of gum on there. And I was like, this is just
where the Walk of Fame is located. When I was in LA, I spent the smallest possible amount of time in the touristy parts because they are horrifying. But I did have to transfer a bus at one point, and I was right by the Walk of Fame. I was actually literally at the corner of Hollywood and Vine when I had to transfer a bus. And it felt like the most sordid, filth-covered quadrant of that entire city.
Which is so weird. Yeah, I agreed. And I thought it was going to be like shiny and pristine, like they'd want to be taking really good care of it. And it was like, I don't know. It was weird. And then the other thing I didn't like about it was you'd be walking down and it's like, who's the guy from Singing in the Rain? Billy, the guy that who's the guy from Singing in the Rain? The actor?
Gene Kelly?
Yeah, Gene Kelly. So like it's like you see Gene Kelly, you see somebody else that's like super historic and famous. You see like Harrison Ford as an example. And that's like Chris Pratt. And you're like, what is Chris? What's the qualifications to get on here? Like it just feels.
I believe it is spending $80,000. I forget the exact total of money.
Oh, you have to buy it.
They are not gratis. You have your publicist buy one for you. Yes.
Oh, don't! This is the worst day of my life. What does that even mean? I thought it was like.
I mean, not just anyone can buy one. Like you could not buy a star and have the little radio symbol on it, but like they're a Chamber of Commerce thing.
Who knew? I thought it was like once you reached a certain pinnacle, they were like, you, Sally Field, you, Robin Williams, you're right here. But no, they just bought themselves right into it. That's disappointing.
Basically. I mean, you have, I don't know if you have to be invited or what, but it is definitely, it is not a public art project, shall we say.
All right. Well, it's still, I'm going to pretend you didn't say that and still call it one of the best moments of my life because it was.
Quick LA question though. Did you find, as I found, the air in LA to be so static and still that it almost feels like you're drowning in the air?
Yeah, it did.
It's horrible.
It felt like a constant fart cloud. Like I was just like, when you walk behind somebody and they fart and you're like, oh, I just walked through it. Like that breeze. It felt like that, but just like constant. Like I just was walking through.
How hard are the people around you farting that it feels like a breeze?
Really hard. I told you it was densely populated. It just felt like there was an odor everywhere I went. And then I felt like I was intruding on a lot of people. There were just tents on the sidewalk as you were like walking. There'd just be like tents sporadically. So then you felt like you were like, are they awake for the day? You feel like you're kind of walking on eggshells. Like maybe they're there, maybe they're not. Like, I don't know. I just felt like I was imposing on a lot of people that are living there on the sidewalk. So it was a lot for me to process, but nevertheless, I had one of the best times. It was so much fun. And again, that WB thing was a part of it. Add it to your bucket list. You were my number one person I was thinking about for how much you enjoy it.
I stayed at a hotel like 2 blocks away from the Warner Brothers Ranch, and I didn't have time to go on the tour, and I regret it because I don't know that I'll ever go back to LA because unlike you, I found it to be not a fun place to be.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat. And I'm going to say at this point, we're at the halfway point of the show.
We are not any such thing.
With the amount of minutes that we've taken to tell these stories.
I have great optimism that we are only at the third mark.
Okay.
Or maybe the quarter.
Okay. Well, either way, I needed to catch up with you anyway, so I feel good about it nevertheless. But before we jump in to this top 5 Pontius Pilate movies episode, this idea for this show came as a response from an episode that aired, it's probably been like 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know. It's a long time ago. I think it was on our top 5 religious movies episode, if you want to look back at it, where we had a discussion about Pontius Pilates that escalated quickly. So for newer listeners, we thought we'd just take the opportunity at this point to listen back.
This is one of our greatest hits, I genuinely believe.
All right, here we go.
Do you want to know something?
It's not making any noise.
You're more dangerous than the Zealots. Do you know that?
I have a question.
Yes.
What's a Pontius Pilate?
That was a person.
A Pontius Pilate is a person?
The man whose name was Pontius Pilate.
Interesting. So how did you suffer under Pontius Pilate?
Because he was the ruler.
Oh.
Yeah, all clicking now. All clicking. I thought you were setting up a joke about what's a Pontius Pilate? An airplane.
Whose name is Pontius?
A Roman.
What a weird name.
A Roman from 2,000 years ago with the name
Pontius Pilate.
He wasn't super popular, so the name didn't stick around. Alternate ending, where we also talk about movie.
Ooh. There we have it. friends. And you know what?
I miss Rob's voice.
I miss
When
it
is Rob
too.
going to rejoin us on this podcast?
I don't know.
I know he was literally
soon.
on our last episode.
I know. Someday we'll get him back on and things will get back on track. But now that I'm listening back, you know what? I think that was a mistake that anybody could have made, frankly.
I think so.
I actually think this episode might be worse. So it could only get worse from that clip.
I have to say, on the subject of Rob not being around, on the subject of the episode getting worse, you have been referred to in the chat today as a pure raconteur chaos Muppet.
Oh.
And I think that's a wonderful phrase.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, MC. I'll be trotting that one out in the future. And I think you should feel complimented by that phrase, Carrie. It is meant as a compliment.
What does it make me if I'm a raconteur?
A raconteur is someone who's very good at just kind of telling robust, lively stories.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thanks. I'll take that.
And I do feel like the thing that we have lost with Rob's absence, we would not have taken 40 minutes to get to this point if Rob had been keeping us
on track.
So I'm saying, fuck that dude.
Yeah.
Let him stay out wherever he's producing movies. I don't give a shit.
Let him get eaten by the ants.
This is good content.
That's right.
I heard about you having your nephew spew vomit all over every surface of an Airbnb.
Again, my love bubble increases when he's mopping it up. It was just all liquid, mopping it up. And for me, again, that's a big win in my book for a spouse. But nevertheless, we've got our lists for our top 5 Pontius Pilate movies. So I think at this point, I'd love to throw it to you, Tim, for what's your criteria? Because it's a little vague to me on what might actually qualify here.
So my first step was first off, I'd like to thank Gavin in absentia for putting on Letterboxd a list of movies that have Pontius Pilate in them. I found that to be a very helpful cheat sheet, and I'm sure he put it up to make it a cheat sheet for this episode. So I looked at that list, and my first step was, do I remember anything about the representation of Pontius Pilate from that movie? And if I did, I wrote it down. And that got me to 4. Actually, that got me to 3, because my 4th was one that was not actually on his list. So just like starting with the question, do I literally even remember, like, can I visually conjure up Pontius Pilate from this movie? I'll call that a win. Okay. I got to 4. For the 5th, I just kind of like reread the reviews I'd written, other people's reviews, Wikipedia posts, until I was like jogged something loose and I was like, aha, I do remember Pontius Pilate in that movie. And so basically, does Pontius Pilate register to me as being part of the fabric of this motion picture? Probably means he was good.
And that's your 5. Then you were able to get to 5.
That's my criterion.
Okay. All right. Mine's slightly different than that.
I have been living in abject terror of this next moment. What are your criteria, Carrie?
It evolved. It evolved over time, I will say. Like, I started with movies that explore the death of Jesus Christ. And that's what I had, period. And then as I was evolving my list, I was like, okay, movies that explore the death of Jesus Christ / God was kind of like my thing.
Movies that explore the death of God?
The death of God. And then...
So this is a very Nietzschean list. Thank you.
It could be. Because again, I think they kind of become one and the same. After Jesus dies, isn't Jesus sort of God? Now they're kind of like hand in hand.
Well,
hands up.
Well, how deep do we want to get into a theological debate, Carrie?
Not a lot. Not a whole lot. Because
it sounds to me like you're trying to recreate the Arian heresy right now.
I don't know what that means.
So basically, it is the question of the Trinity. Are God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit always existent at the same time? Or does there come a point in history when God the Father begets God the Son?
Oh, okay. Well, you had to beget him because...
So this is what I'm saying. You are recreating, you would be murdered by the Christians of the 3rd century.
Oh, okay. I can imagine there's lots of reasons they would want me out, though. Other than
see, for me, and this is one of my hot takes, I would have absolutely been an Arian at the time. Like it seems rational to me. It seems more narratively satisfying that God the Father creates God the Son at a certain point. But that is heretical, literally. Like it is to my knowledge, no existing Christian church believes that to be true. So you and I are both going to be cast into hell together, Carrie.
Okay.
And we're going to have a good old time. We'll podcast for Satan.
And in all honesty, I don't even know what I believe. It's just meant for my list to work. So
okay.
So I don't even actually know. I don't even know anything. So it evolved from there. So I had /God, and then I said, you know what? At the end of the day, if we're being fair to this list, I said final answer: movies that explore the death of Jesus Christ /God, or people that look like Jesus or God.
Okay.
And so that's where I'm at. It's just a pretty basic sentence for my criteria. It's not a genre I love. I don't love religious movies, so I think they're a bit of a downer. They have a tendency to be a little...
I have to ask, Carrie, did you look at Gavin's list of movies that actually have the character of Pontius Pilate in them?
I did, and I hadn't seen any of those.
Of them? Not a single one of 37?
Just one, and it made my list. So I'm excited to talk to you about that one. But obviously he missed some because I have 4 more. So after he listens to this episode, he's going to be like, got to revise that list and add in some of Carrie's. So
I'll bet he doesn't.
I bet you're right. So we'll just jump in and get started. Tim, I'm going to send it to you. What is your number 5?
So my number 5, I suspect, is the only one on that list you've seen. So we'll see. In fairness, so I said my process again was just trying to remember without having to look it up who played Pontius Pilate, what was Pontius Pilate's deal in this movie. This is the one that I had to kind of refresh my memory. But having refreshed my memory, I was like, oh yeah, actually it was a very interesting performance or interesting representation of this character. And this would be the 1959 Best Picture winning 4-hour epic Ben-Hur, which is, as the subtitle tells us, a story of the Christ, although it's really a story of Ben-Hur. The Christ sort of wanders into it in the 7th act, only for the last 20 minutes or so. But Pontius Pilate is actually in the film more than Christ is. It is a story about kind of the Roman province of Judea, where Pontius Pilate was the governor. Just to refresh us so we all actually know what the hell we're talking about. That is who Pontius Pilate was, right? He was the Roman appointee to sort of govern the territory where Jesus Christ did his ministry during his life. And so Ben-Hur is the story of other people living in the same province around the same time, notably Judah Ben-Hur, played by Charlton Heston. And in this film, Pontius Pilate is played by Frank Thring, which feels like a made-up surname, but we'll spot it. So Frank Thring as Pontius Pilate. And according to sort of the things I was reading, and this I don't want to say this is true or not, because I certainly am not the Pontius Pilate episode that say Gavin is. Apparently this was groundbreaking-ish at the time it came out for representing Pilate not as just a kind of decadent villain, but as an actual sort of thoughtful politico who was just trying to do what he could to keep this unruly sort of frontier territory moving in some sort of way forward. So he is not necessarily a sympathetic character. He's not necessarily someone we like, but he is someone that we don't just view as kind of bloodlusty and savage and cruel. He's a politician. And I remember this, I looked up pictures of Frank Thring and I remembered his face. It's like, oh yeah, I do actually kind of have a sense of that being, this is Pilate as a person who is just trying to get a job done. And all of these feisty first century Jews are making it tough on him, and that sucks for him. And that's what I got for my number 5.
Well, and I wonder, I was doing a little research on him too, and it doesn't sound like he's the one that actually did the attachment to the cross structure. So it's like, who do you blame? Is it just that you got to have a name? Maybe it wasn't Pontius. Maybe Pontius was just standing around. Who really knows? It was so long ago. No one wrote this stuff down,
It was written down 4 times.
Oh,
notably.
Is it in the Bible?
In fact, this is the Gospels.
This is the Gospels. I mean, again, no one's around to tell us if it's true or not. I could write anything down right now and none of it would be true. Who really knows? But Ben-Hur's a good one, but one I also haven't seen. So I couldn't put that one on my list.
Oh, I didn't know you hadn't seen Ben-Hur.
I know.
Well, it is 4 hours long.
Again, big deterrent for me. And again, that whole...
It is a 4-hour movie with, I believe, roughly 12 good minutes is my hot take on Ben-Hur.
All right. Well, I will consider checking out those 12 minutes, if anything. Maybe
you
I'll
are scandalizing the chat with how you are just like making a hash of Christian doctrine right now.
Oh, of Christian what?
Doctrine.
Oh, doctrine. Again, yeah, it's all just sort of up here in a hodgepodge, and so whatever comes out is nonsensical, and that's the result. Which leads me to my number 5. So let me tell you about this.
I am going to brace my body for whatever's about to happen.
So here's Jesus. Jesus comes along, and he's played by Charlton Heston. He leads the slaves away from tyranny of the Egyptian pharaohs, Ramses, okay, into the desert, and later is given into the laws of God. And then once the pharaoh chief architects, what's that?
Did you say Jesus is doing these things?
Yeah. And then
just wanted to clarify that.
He receives the attention of Queen Nefertiti, but then he gets banished and dies. And he goes into exile and dies. And that death, while I don't know if I necessarily remember Pontius being around for the death, he did go into exile. He did die. So I assume that we're just supposed to interpret that Pontius killed him because that's history, like you mentioned earlier. And this at my number 5 is the 10 Commandments.
So your recollection is the 10 Commandments is a movie where the Charlton Heston character is Jesus and dies.
At the end. It's very sad.
Okay.
Yes. That's my number 5. So what's your number 4?
I want to make a couple clarifications. Just for knowledge.
Love this movie, by the way. So good.
It's a movie about Moses.
I don't know if that's true, Tim.
Now here's your out, Carrie. Here's
Help
where
me.
you sort of in Islamic tradition, Moses and Jesus occupy roughly the same level of, I forget the exact term, but like they're the great prophets who precede Muhammad. So they are both, I believe it's Abraham, then Moses, then Jesus are kind of the 3 main prophets to come before. So
same power level. Exactly.
Same power level. So they're sort of interchangeable in a way. Now I'm the one who's now being a heretic against Islam. But basically you can sort of swap them out, I guess, would be my point. So we'll say that is your defense.
Yeah. I love that. And honestly, if you were going to have a body double for Jesus, Moses is it. Like same beard, same like tan skin, wavy hair. Maybe it's a little bit grayer, but like other than that, it's practically Jesus. And so that's why I have it at my number 5, because he's practically Jesus. We're never releasing this out. This is going to become one of those episodes we never release because people will not be happy.
How does Moses die in the 10 Commandments, Carrie?
In exile. He gets cast away in exile.
But what is the mode of his death? Like what kills him?
Is it also Pontius Pilate? I don't.
But how does Pontius Pilate cut his head off with a sword? Like how does he actually? What is the mechanism by which he dies?
Was it a cross?
I don't think it was a cross.
No. Does he drown?
I don't even think he dies. It's been a while since I've seen the 10 Commandments, but I think he's still alive at the end of it.
So shoot. Let's move past that part. I assume he died at some point and at the hands of somebody.
Eventually he died, yes.
Yes, I assume that he did. So that's
this happened several thousand years before Jesus was killed.
Okay. Well, you know what? It's close enough for this list for me. The rest of them, I'm solid. The rest, I knew that one was a little weak. I knew you might call me out on it. I was going to try to breeze past, but the rest are super solid. So I feel good about it, which leads us to your number 4, which is my number 1.
So my number 4, regrettably, I have to say, Carrie, it does feature Pontius Pilate.
Okay.
As a character in it. So I'm a little bit more boring and sedate than you. This again is the ones where I was able to conjure up what happened in the movie without having to look it up. And my sense, and it's not one that I'm not a theologian by any stretch. I'm not really a historian of religious drama. I dabble. I took a class in undergrad about medieval passion plays that I really liked. My sense is that Pontius Pilate as a character sort of reached his dramatic peak in the sort of medieval passion plays, which was a genre of play. And we don't really have too many modern day versions of those, like these sort of weirdly violent, strange, mystical kind of storytelling that went out in these passion plays. But I think we do have one. I think we do have one proper filmed version of this kind of dramatic story. And indeed, it is called The Passion of the Christ, the 2004 film directed by Mel Gibson, where I'm going to butcher this poor man's name. Pontius Pilate is in that film. Hang on. I'm looking it up.
I wish I could help you.
Christo Shapov.
Okay.
Hopefully I got somewhere in the vicinity of correctly pronouncing his name. So here's where things get super weird and unpleasant to talk about. Obviously, part of the point of Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ was to really, really emphasize the version of the gospel telling, probably most prominent from the Gospel of John, where it's all the fault of the Jews. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that the movie's doing is offloading responsibility for the crucifixion from Pilate onto the Jewish priests led by Caiaphas. What this does mean for the purpose of representing Pilate as a character is that it gives him a lot more room for dramatic nuance. He is an interesting character here. He gets, again, it's sort of Pilate as a politician, someone who's having to make these really difficult decisions for a bunch of people that he views as being kind of a lot of weird, whiny rabble rousers. But he still has to deal with it. He still has to be the source of authority, the source of sort of political stability in this area. And I think that's an interesting approach to the character. And I think that the actor, who I'm not going to even vaguely attempt to make a second run at that name, has, I think, gotten into that. And it's a very pragmatic way of playing this character, who is, like all the characters in the gospel stories, kind of an abstraction, kind of more a collection of vague things we can sort of hook onto him as like, this is what he represents symbolically in this Christian story. And he turns that into like a character, like, again, a sort of real world politician who represents worldliness and material strength in this movie that is extremely not about those things. That is very much about like this kind of mystical approach to the story. Which is interesting. It puts him at this contrast to the rest of the film. And I like that about that. And again, I was able to vividly remember at least his face without having to look it up. And that was an important criterion for me.
So quick question on that. So he's saying Pontius, not so bad in the depiction of that. Do you feel like, again, there's sort of an extreme religious group that exists in the world. Do you feel like playing a villain in one of those movies puts you at risk? Like, if you're the person that kills Jesus in a movie, there's people that are wackadoodles that are going to come out and be like, this was you and you've done this. Like, do you think people experience that kind of stuff in these types of movies?
I think people have. I don't think anyone did with this particular movie. I don't think that people confuse an actor playing Pilate with the actual historical Pontius Pilate, but certainly people have been targeted for their association with controversial religious storytelling.
Yeah, because I was thinking, I haven't heard of Wistoff ever again. You said that name, and
well, he's not like a Hollywood actor. I mean, I could probably look it up. I'm sure he's.
I just hope he's still around. That's where my head went.
I would imagine so. I imagine whatever he's doing, he's not doing it in English language cinema. Because again, this movie, keep in mind, is not an English language film.
Yeah,
it's a Hollywood production, but it's an American production, but it is entirely in. God, is it in Aramaic? I forget what language it was actually shot in. But the casting all happened from the Middle East. It did not happen from like the normal, I guess, Caviezel, but the casting was not like Hollywood types.
Okay. Well, that's a good one. Never saw it, never will. Heard it was sad, but no interest. So
sure. They're all sad.
This one's not. My next one's not. My next one, it's very uplifting. Literally, people were uplifted during this movie. I will say, I'm putting it on my list. I think it counts. I did see the rock opera version of this. So it's like a tiny bit of a stretch, but I'm still putting it on here. And I would say that there's a probably 3 to 12% chance that I'm confusing this with Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. A little bit unsure, but mostly I'm sure that I saw it. And this is the story of the last 6 days of Jesus Christ's life. Things weren't going well, and there was a whole lot kind of going on. There was a lot of drama, but it's depicted almost the best in 1973's Jesus Christ Superstar. Have you seen this movie?
I have seen this movie. I have reviewed this movie.
Oh, have you seen the play or the musical? The musical.
I have seen it staged. I have seen multiple filmed recordings, including the 1973 version, yes.
Is there a chance that Donny Osmond ever was in this musical?
There's a chance, although I am not aware of it. And if you're thinking of Donny Osmond, you are thinking of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Sure. I think I've seen both, is what I'm saying. But I saw this as a kid with my mom. She went on a streak where she was like, I need to make my kids really refined and take them to musicals. Never liked them. Never did. But this one in particular, I remember just thinking had a good energy to it. So
Jesus Christ Superstar is a really, really wild experience. It is. Well, no, it's your pick, so you go ahead.
No, I mean, I haven't seen it since I was like 10, but I remember at the time just being like, this wasn't so bad. Like, I thought Swan Lake and all those were just such a snooze, but this one, I was like, this one has some good beats, some good music. I was into it.
Well, it's rock, and Swan Lake is most certainly not rock.
Yeah, so I think I'm into rock. I liked this one, and so I was like, you know what? I gotta thank God that I saw this.
Hey.
Thanks. Oh, yeah. Because, again, Pontius Pilate shows up doing his thing, and I was glad for it because it gave me a number 4 for today. Who knew all these years later the value it would have?
Is this the only one that's actually got Pontius Pilate in it?
No, it's going to get more Pontius-y as we go, honestly.
Okay, because I want to point out, I'm getting the impression you've not seen the film.
No. Just the musical.
Okay.
But it counts.
So I am actually going to throw you a curveball kind of for my number 3. I'm also putting Jesus Christ Superstar on my list, but I'm not putting the 1973 film on my list.
Okay.
Very specifically. I think the 1973 film is lousy as hell. I don't like it at all. But I do think the representation of Pilate in the musical Jesus Christ Superstar is really interesting and cool. Mm-hmm. He's, again, kind of this, like, grounded figure in this whirlwind of, like, strangeness, and he's got this really good song about, like, the vision he sees and how he sees, this sort of unstoppable force that is going to work through and around him, and he's just really kind of depressed about the whole thing. The version of Pilate I'm putting on my list is specifically, and I want to make sure I get the exact name of it right because it's been filmed, as I said, multiple times, the Jesus Christ Superstar Live Arena Tour, which was the recording made or released in 2012 of the show done in this just batshit staging, although every staging of Jesus Christ Superstar is a batshit staging. That's part of the show. This one is the one that stars Tim Minchin as Judas, stars Mel C of the Spice Girls as Mary Magdalene, and for our purposes, stars Alexander Hansen as Pontius Pilate. And in a piece of staging that I will remember until the day I die, there is so the way that Jesus and Pilate meet in Jesus Christ Superstar is Pilate sort of distracted and going about his business as governor. Jesus is brought in, and Pilate just kind of gives him this very dismissive, like, you don't even matter, like you're less than is worthy of my time to pay attention to, and he kind of dismisses him off to go attend Herod, the actual
I remember him.
Of Judea.
Yep.
And in this particular staging, the 2012 staging, which is, for the record, sort of set in the Occupy Wall Street movement, because again, it's a batshit ass show and you can stage it any way you want. So there's hashtags and there's fake YouTube and there's like, anarchist days all over everything. And so Pilate is presented as this like high achieving executive who is not even taking a break from his like lunchtime workout mode. So he's like got like the towel around his neck and everything. And there's this particular beat where the song goes, "What do you mean by that?" And while he's doing this, the actor is like doing tricep presses.
Mm-hmm.
So like he's like up and down, like what, up and then down and do. And you can't see it listening to the show. I'm currently actually doing it on the Zoom.
It's good for sure.
It's this wild fucking weird ass staging choice that is like everything to do with a proper staging of Jesus Christ Superstar in horribly bad taste and really compelling, or really weird at least. And it's lived with me. I first watched this during the pandemic Easter when Andrew Lloyd Webber was releasing recordings of his shows for like, even though we've got a pandemic closing down our theaters, you can still see art, wherein art is defined as Andrew Lloyd Webber shows. And like, that's a terrible definition of art. But I saw it then. I bought the Blu-ray because I was like, holy shit, this is the weirdest staging of this very weird show I've ever seen. And that is maybe my favorite part of this very weird staging, is this kind of like 80s Coke yuppie version of Pilate doing his workout while he's criticizing Jesus because he's just that disinterested in Jesus. And that's kind of the show's portrayal of him, is this guy who can't be bothered and doesn't give a shit. And I like the idea of staging someone singing a song while doing a workout. I think it's very gonzo.
Yeah. And so basically we have the same. I'm going to actually just change mine to that. I think mine should be that too, as a reference point, because that sounds better than...
I've locked you onto my list. You've already got the 73 film
Darn
down.
Darn it. I liked your arm workout more, but...
You can borrow my Blu-ray anytime you want.
I won't. But nevertheless, good pick. And I'm glad we're a little bit lining up-ish, because I think there's one other one that we will for sure. But that does bring it to my number 3, which is, again, I go back to, at this point, the gratitude that I have that Gavin is not here today with his to attend this, because I imagine he would not like this pick. But I do think that it qualifies. And it was thanks to him that I saw it. And it is one of, I would say, the worst movies that I've ever seen. It for sure makes my bottom 10 of all time that I've ever seen. But again, it comes full circle. I'm like, I've seen some of these movies that I absolutely didn't like, but this list came along and I'm like, well, if I hadn't seen it, gosh, I wouldn't have it here today. So for this one, thank you, Gavin. Jesus is just walking around, hanging out. Almost immediately, he poops in a jar. From there, a bunch of people decide to cast Jesus's likeness in a bunch of sort of wax statues. And while it's not exactly Jesus that dies, the statues all get destroyed. So it's sort of like the likeness of Jesus and Jesus's death. It's sort of a metaphor, like a representation of Jesus's death. So it's sort of symbolic, maybe not a metaphor. Maybe it's symbolic of the death of Jesus, which is unfortunate. And again, that all sort of circles back to Pontius Pilate there at the end. And this is 1930. No, it's actually from 1973.
I was going to say, there's no way in hell that this is 1930s.
It's a silent film. No, 1973's Holy Mountain.
All right.
Yeah.
In as much as this film has Christian iconography in it, I think that it is closer than the Ten Commandments.
See? I thought so. That's why it's in my number 3 and not my number 5. Exactly. So I'm working my way up to be more Jesus-y as I go. That was kind of my plan.
Well, I mean, you actually had Jesus as a character in Jesus Christ Superstar,
Fair.
which I suspect we will not be seeing again. So in a sense, you probably peaked with your Jesus-iness.
That's true. Who knows the order here? This one felt more Jesus-y because, again, I go back to, it wasn't just one Jesus. There were so many of them. They were everywhere, honestly. And again, I go back to, you're hearing me talk about this movie. You're probably excited by what I just described. Never watch it. Just never put yourself through this. It is, in fact, terrible. But enough to make my list.
Before we go to you saying before we go to our break, I just need to ask a question, Carrie. When you were a child,
yes,
did your parents raise you in any sort of religious tradition? Like, did you go to church?
I did a lot. So much.
What kind of church did you go to?
So I went to a few. At one point, I was in Awana. I think I've talked about this a long time ago. I was in Awana, which was like a church club for kids. But I was there for the snacks. They had really, really good snacks. And then like the games, used to get to like run around a circle and do pins. And I really liked to win. I was really competitive as a little kid. I think as an adult, I would never send my kids there. I think it's a little bit more, I don't know if it resonates with me as an adult on maybe what they're teaching. But then we migrated into being Methodists. We were Methodists.
Okay, Methodists.
Yep.
Okay, that gives me something I can hang my head on.
Yep. And again, my mom is not. I don't think my mom actually believes anything, but I think she felt like it was a checkbox. Like, I have to be a good mom that takes my kids to church. So we were kind of loosey-goosey about it. And like, if the Chicago Bears weren't playing, my dad might go for a holiday. And then my mom always just like put cash in the thing because she felt bad. So I think it was like guilt. I think it was guilt church. More.
Okay, well, that is church. That is all churches.
Yeah.
So that tracks.
But we're not a family that's like, oh, you've sinned, you're bad. Like, there was never any sort of anything. And my mom is. Oh, no,
I'm not saying like, were you raised in an evangelical household? I know you weren't. I was just curious, like, if you got me as far as Methodists. And that's what I was really curious about was like, were you in any way, shape, or form instructed in any kind of systematic?
Yeah.
Religious framework.
Kind of was, but honestly, again, even at church, they used to give out that little juice and like some little like really good sweet bread that you could pull off. Now it's really germy when you think about it. But I loved that really like Hawaiian bread that they had. If I could just brought a little dip with me, I would have been set. But I just, again, love that. Love the cookies after church was over. And then while I was in church, I don't think I was really in church.
It doesn't sound like.
I was just coloring on those little offering things, like the little paper. So
sure. I was brought up in a UCC, United Church of Christ, which is like about as liberal as you get before you just stop being Christian.
That's where we're at now with our kids. We go to a UCC church once every 3 years, but I love it. I actually really like it. Like, I think it's so service oriented.
What was that?
It's so service oriented. Like, they're just more about, like you said, it's like right on the cusp of like, what is, if anything, even really? But let's do goodery in the community.
See, like if I were to go to church, which of course I would not, I would want to go to like a real fire and brimstone church because I feel like at least you're going to get a show. And my chief memory of UCC is that it was like
sunshine and rainbows.
Achingly dull. It was like eating water.
Yeah.
And I just like, if I'm going to do this, I want to have someone screeching about hell and singing actual good songs and not these indescribably insipid, like fourth generation removed from Luther-esque hymns. That's not what I'm there for. I want some ferocity.
Yeah. Yeah, you want the weirdos. I could totally see that. And I don't want that. I want like hold hands. Last time we were at church, the pastor got up and he's like, I would like to tell everybody I'm gay. And everyone was like, yay. And then he was like, and my son is here today. And this is the first time I've seen him in 5 years. And everyone's like, yay. And then like everybody
That's a lot for the son.
I imagine he was overwhelmed, but I mean, he seemed fine. And then he hung around for coffee afterwards. And again, the snacks are still there. And so, yeah, that's all I want is just like, yay, at church and no drama.
The last time I was at a religious ceremony would have been last summer. A family member of my partner was getting married in a Catholic ceremony. And we went, and it was liberal Catholics.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, you're the Catholics. If anyone's going to just be like, we're going to fucking
like make me mad.
4 hours later, we might be done with the sermon. Like, that's what I wanted. It was like, no, it was just like a whole bunch of feely, nice bullshit. Like, that's not what I'm here for.
You didn't leave with any anxiety at all. That's the worst.
No.
Gosh darn. Well, Nevertheless, we are going to head to break. But before we do, this is where we're going to pause a bit. I haven't been able to look at the chat.
Are you going to take a moment to catch up with the very robust chat?
I am not going to catch up, but what I will do is say, if you do have a question or any responses that you want read, do drop those in the chat now. If you have questions about our lists, if you have questions about religion that I can answer for you, we'll take those as well. So I'm going to pop into the chat now and throw it to the audience if you have them.
We do have a question. Do you want me to ask, or
Sure.
shall we ask?
Sure, you throw the questions out there.
Yeah, Carrie, I'm just very curious. What, to your mind, is the purpose behind the juice and the sweet Hawaiian bread in church?
Oh, that's a good question, and you're going to think you've got me, but I think it's the blood in the body, right?
Yeah.
It is.
Oh gosh, yeah.
What does that mean?
You know, of Jesus Christ. So you're eating God, basically, or you're like eating Jesus. So, and the only reason I know that is because I like zone back in when it comes out, and so I'm in line, and they go up there, and then they like really creepily are like, the blood in the body of Jesus Christ, like as you take the bread, and then I'm always like trying to kind of distract him a little because I want to like pull off a bigger hunk of the sweet bread, so I have to like linger a bit, and then they like say it a few times. They're like, okay, lady, blood in the body of Jesus Christ, and you're like, ooh, it's so creepy, but I'm saying it sticks with me.
I just want to ask a follow-up question, and this is of very little importance, and no one would ever really care. Based just on your intuitions, Carrie,
yes.
Do you think that what you are eating metaphorically represents the body and blood of Jesus Christ, or do you think it actually, in a meaningful spiritual way, is the body and blood of Jesus Christ?
The first one, symbolic. I don't think I want to be eating like any of Jesus's parts, you know?
Okay.
I just want to just symbolize.
I was curious where you're gonna land on that one. That's
symbolic thigh, but not
once or twice
thigh.
throughout history, people have felt that was important enough to sort of try and distinguish between those things.
Oh, okay. Otherwise,
you did, for the record, you landed on the Protestant side, and
Excellent.
you were raised Protestant, so that tracks.
Excellent. Good. So far, I feel good about this. Anyone else want to raise a hand for any?
You
questions?
managed to reinvent Arianism, but you also landed on the correct side of
I know my
transubstantiation.
snacks. I told you, I know my snacks. Any other questions you want to throw out there? I see a question from Mandy. Best roller coaster at Cedar Point. Were you pro or anti Mean Streak? Gosh, I don't know if I went on Mean Streak. Keep in mind
you
there
went
were
on everything.
So I went on almost anything. I went on almost every ride that was there. So Mandy, my answer to you, I have a ranking right now of my top 3. My number 1 best, hands down best roller coaster experience in my life was called, Mandy, you can jump off mute if you want to too. I think it's the newest one. It's called Steel. It's like the wooden one.
Steel Bandits.
Steel Bandits?
Steel Vengeance.
Steel Vengeance.
So to clarify my question from earlier,
Yes.
Steel Vengeance was built upon the corpse of Mean Streak.
Oh.
So if it's been a while since you went to Cedar Point, you might not have ridden Mean Streak. But Mean Streak was a very controversial roller coaster, and the controversy was divided into the correct people who believed that it was a beautiful, wonderful, old-fashioned wooden classic that had the best staff who would let you ride it over and over again. And if you were getting jerked around, you just had to hold tighter and sit up straight, and that was all you needed to do.
Yep.
And the wrong people who thought that it was too old-fashioned and jolty and jerky and would give you headaches.
I see.
The wrong people got it murdered and got Steel Vengeance built.
I see. So
while I love Steel Vengeance, that fact prevents me from ever putting it at the top of a Cedar Point coaster ranking.
Oh no! I thought we were gonna agree because honestly, best experience of my life.
It's a great roller coaster. I just miss Mean Streak.
I bet, and I never went on Mean Streak, so I can't speak to it. But Steel Vengeance, I will say, if anyone goes to Cedar Point, do what I did. We stayed at the park for literally from like 10 a.m. when it opened until 10 p.m. when it closed, and got in line for Steel Vengeance at like 9:55, and they wouldn't kick us out because we were in line. And I huddled like all my nephews and nieces. They were everywhere. Not my nieces. They were my own kids. We were all together. We went there. Whoever would go on with me. And we went on it, and it was pitch black outside. Darkness for that ride is critical. It was so fast, so scary, so wild. And then like you weave inside of the actual ride itself at night to do that when you can't see like anything else. Just super epic. So that's number one. Number two is Millennium Force for me. Mandy, I don't know if you'll agree on that one.
You haven't gotten to the actual number one yet, but Millie is a respectable choice.
Okay, so that was my number two. And then the third, I think for me, because I honestly felt like I was a stingray floating in the water. And I was like, I've always wanted to be a stingray. And that was the one when you first walk into the park and to the right, and it's blue.
Gatekeeper?
Gatekeeper. Yes.
That's a really good one.
I did that one just over and over again because I was just like, I think I'm flying. It was amazing. I loved it.
It's a great coaster. The best one is Maverick, though, which you did not mention.
That is Rob's favorite. Remind me what happens on that one again. Is that the red one?
Maverick has the beyond vertical drop at the beginning, and you go around a bunch of curves, and there are a couple of different launches, and it's amazing.
Yes.
And the perfect roller coaster.
That is Rob's favorite. That is my tie for number three.
Rob's correct.
Yeah, I know. But I will tell you, he's afraid of heights. So he pushed himself to do that because the kids were all like forcing him into it.
That's a perfect one for him, though, then, because it doesn't go very high. It's all built around the landscape instead of taking you way high up the way Millennium Force does.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I turned this into a roller coaster podcast.
I love it. And I haven't had anyone to talk to about it. So I appreciate it. And we're going to meet you there the next time we go because I'm like just going to make that a thing now that I go to all the time.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Did you learn anything about Pontius Pilate as you were preparing for this episode?
You know what? I wikied him and I was like, you know what? It sounds like he was just kind of hanging around, not less like involved in the process. And so I kind of thought, you know what? Maybe this guy's getting a bad rap. You know, that was the main takeaway I had from my research.
So your main takeaway is that Pontius Pilate should not be blamed for killing Jesus.
No, I think it was a group effort is what I'm saying.
You think that it was okay, what group do you think did it?
All the people that were there. You're not going to get Jesus up with one person. Pontius isn't like a super strong person that's going to like hoist him up there.
What group would you say is morally culpable for killing Jesus? Any particular
Whoever
group?
was there at the time, I guess. But they were just doing what, I don't know, like you said, they were just doing their job.
In the chat, I am being accused of trying to bait you, which is exactly correct.
You can't bait me because I don't know. I don't know who was there. Steve?
I'm just trying to get you to recreate various religious controversies, Carrie. It's okay.
I see. It was probably Paul, Steve, John, based on like biblical history. There was probably a John there for sure. So I'm going to say John. John did it.
Okay.
And we should blame John, not just Pontius.
I mean, for what it's worth, I do think John is the most immoral of the four gospel writers. So I think we're sort of in the same boat.
We're always agreeing at the end.
I want to just add to the Cedar Point conversation by saying I've never been to Cedar Point.
You need to.
And my partner hates roller coasters, so I'm not sure that I will ever get to Cedar Point if I only go on vacations with him. And
I will go with you.
Potentially be a reason not to go on vacation with him.
Yeah, I will take you. We'll meet Mandy there. It's going to be amazing. You'll drive. It'll be all in one. It'll be an all-encompassing
And for the record, the chat has fully turned against me and is on Team Carrie. So I feel like we finally got us where we needed to be.
This is where I always want it to go. So thank you guys for your questions. And before we head to our break, you might be wondering about ways to support the show. You can join Patreon and get early access to exclusive content, make us watch a movie, pick your own episode topic, and more on our Patreon site, just like Thomas Harwell and MC Alcock, who picked up the Emmy Award level, entitling them to exclusive access to TV reviews, early access to classic movie reviews, and so much more. And this here podcast shout out. So thank you, Thomas and MC. Celebrating their anniversaries with us this month, it's Johnny Mugwump, Micah Clark, James Preschel, Valentine Montagani, Andy, Thomas Stubbs, Albie Hay, Ian B. Jones, Michael Robertson, Chris Lawrenson, Robert Hill, Gavin. Hey, Gavin, this is your day.
This is where we're doing this episode.
This is where we're doing the episode. P. Chazini and Ann Urell. Thank you so much. Also want to thank all of our listeners who support our show and make their Amazon purchases through our site. Doing it is easy. Just go to our website, alternateending.com, click through our Amazon banner, and seamlessly go about your purchases. All proceeds go to making our show better. just going to name a few that are out there because there's a lot of them since it's been a while. I'll say thanks to whoever bought Nightmare USA, the untold story of the exploitation independence. Seems light and airy. The Man from Hong Kong, aka The Dragon Files. Someone also bought the Alfred Hitchcock collection. Was that you, Tim?
No, it's not.
Not you? I could see you buying something like that. Lots of Alfred Hitchcock. Maybe it's his birthday or something. I don't know. Somebody's also buying headbands. Lots of hair things. Some people are doing their hair probably because it's summer. Someone's out there getting, more hair clips. Gosh, maybe someone had a baby. Baby hair clips. That's cute. Also, really want to thank...
Baby's bald, though.
Not always. Abby came out with a full set. It falls out sometimes, but...
Full set of hair.
Full set of hair. Yeah. And thank you to whoever bought so much tape. We hope that is going to good use.
I don't know why that phrase strikes me as being so funny.
I don't either, but your face is making me laugh. When we get back, our number 1 and 2 picks for the best Pontius Pilate movies ever. Welcome back. Here we are again, Tim, to talk about our 1 and 2 best Pontius Pilate-ish movies. Maybe that's the title of this episode.
It's not, though.
It's not.
The title is Best Pontius Pilates.
My number 1
it's okay.
Is. My number 1 and 2
we're having a good time.
All right, so give me your number 2. Again, I think one of mine is on your list, so it's either 1 or 2. So what's your number 2?
Well, we'll see. My number 2 is one of the 2 that I was absolutely confident the minute this topic came up would be on my list. I was actually pretty sure would be my number 2. And this is from the highly contentious, beloved by some, hated by many, 1988 Martin Scorsese film, The Last Temptation of Christ, which is, his take on the Passion of Jesus as this very, very complicated psychological story about doubt and the desire to, be freed from material worries. In this particular case, Pontius Pilate is played by David Bowie, the noted musical star, who has been used in a handful of movies. And I think there's always a sense of when you put David Bowie in a film, you are not putting in the film to play a role as such. You are putting him in the film to draw upon his history of being David Bowie, for want of a different phrase. So by saying David Bowie is going to play Pontius Pilate in this movie, I feel like there is a bid to kind of understand Pontius Pilate as a Bowie-esque figure. In this particular case, it's drawing a little bit on Bowie's kind of androgynous qualities, on his slightly alien qualities, and it's kind of trying to position Pontius Pilate, I think, as this figure from a world outside of the very grounded one where the story's been taking place. It's a very naturalistic film in a lot of ways. It's, pulling in actors like Willem Dafoe, Harvey Keitel to give these kind of performances that are very earthy and real, and Bowie's cutting against that. And he's also, his casting sort of plays into this general trend in a lot of Bible epics of British actors play Romans / villains. American actors play the Judeans or the non-Romans, whatever the non-Romans are in any given story. And so I think that's something that's very much at play here, where like Bowie's Britishness is being used on top of all these other things to really other him and to make him someone who sort of feels like this external force hammering in on Jesus in this story, and this kind of the inherent decadence, the sort of like Weimar, Berlin, 70s cocaine, all the things that we sort of attach to Bowie are kind of, I think, being played with to give the suggestion that the Roman Empire is this kind of I mean, decadent. Decadent's the word people used to describe the Roman Empire. This kind of decadent, licentious thing that feels wrong compared to the kind of very, again, earthiness of like your Willem Dafoe's Jesus. And that's my number 2.
Yeah, you're so knowledgeable on this. I'm always so impressed. It's
That's your euphemism for saying that I was boring you.
You know what? We know each other too well at this point. I did zone out a little bit there. It's so much detail. It's like, again, everybody that's listening.
Well, someone on this episode has to be talking about actually Pontius Pilate.
This is
You're
fair.
offloading so much work on me,
I'm not saying
Carrie.
I don't appreciate it. I'm just saying, for me in particular, I'm like, again, I'm thinking about that bread and juice again, like right, just like back in the day. So, nevertheless, good pick. That list or that movie made others' lists as well, but not mine because I haven't seen that one either. But you know which one did? It's a movie about an abortion clinic, and things sort of go awry. But in this, I swear to you, God is in this movie, and God does die. Wait, I think God dies. Hang on, let me tell you about what happens.
Does someone get an abortion, but the abortion was going to be God?
Let me think through what happened. Hang on, maybe. An abortion clinic worker with a special heritage is called upon to save the existence of humanity from being negated by and 2 renegade angels. Okay. Bethany finds God's body that's stuck on life support and lets it die. Okay. So Bethany, in this case, they're not named directly Pontius. In this case, Bethany is playing the role of Pontius Pilate. Just lets him die right out. And then they're trying to like go on a whole path to figure out like how they get to heaven. And then God, like, does God come back? I won't spoil this movie for you. And then the main woman, who's a descendant of Jesus, gets pregnant when God resurrects her. And so like that sort of becomes like it's all living on. So essentially, again, going back to the original theory here, Bethany is supposed to sort of be like a symbol or, you know, reimagination. I guess reimagination is the word I'm looking for, of Mr. Pilate. And this is 1999's Dogma.
I feel like if Gavin had been able to make it to this live recording, you would have killed him.
Again,
you would have been the Pontius Pilate in Gavin's passion.
I was just going to say, somebody's watching over me right now. I feel that. This is a spiritual moment for me, that I have this group of people here today who are so kind to me.
So who is the actual character? So Bethany is the character you were saying is Pontius Pilate.
Yep.
Okay.
Bethany is acting as Mr. Pilate in this, like as a symbol. Like, again, it's not Pontius Pilate specifically, but that's like what she's representing is said Mr. Pontius. So it's a good one. Highly recommend this one, and you'll all see exactly what I mean if you haven't seen it.
For the record, in the chat, Mandy believes that you are on solid ground here.
Yep. But she's right. She's very smart.
Okay.
She's incredibly smart.
I feel like now I appreciate the zoned out feeling that you were feeling when I was talking about Bowie, for the record.
I lost you on that one a little bit too.
I was trying to follow your logic, and I ended up like swerving the wheel the wrong way, and I just dove off a cliff.
Yeah.
And I think the car I'm in is still like falling towards the Pacific Ocean, and I'm just waiting to drown and die.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I sometimes feel that way too. I promise you, my number one is going to leave you feeling close and connected to me, though, because I
hope so. I don't know if you've seen the film that I have at number one, but I hope you have.
All right, well, let's hear your number one.
So my number one is, when I think of Pontius Pilates in movies, or movies about the life of Christ in general, I go straight to a very, very important movie in my development as a human being. One of the funniest movies I have ever seen in my life. 1979's Monty Python's Life of Brian, which is a parody of the Passion Story, parody of movies about the Passion Story, arguably a parody of Christianity itself. And in this particular case, Pontius Pilate is played by Michael Palin, one of the members of the troupe Monty Python, as a lisping goofball who cannot say his R's and is treated with disdain and mockery by the very same people he's trying to to, in some capacity, rule as the governor of the province. There's an argument that could be made there, like, well, the point is that he's being mocked, and that's what tells us something about Pilate. But really, it's on my list as number one because I think it's really, 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 really funny.
It's also my number one, Tim.
What's that?
It's also my number one.
I'm very pleased to hear that. Tell me about why you love this Pontius Pilate.
I just loved it. Honestly, I don't know how much of it was factual or not, but I remember when Rob and I were watching it. So thanks to Patreon Jack Chivers, he had us watch this, and I was like, gosh, how did I miss this? It was such a treat. It was hilarious. And I kept saying to Rob, like, I want to make sure, because I was like, this is actually working for me. Like, I'm processing all of this stuff. So I was like, if this is off, this is going to be bad, because, like, I don't want to, like, restate what I saw in Monty Python's Life of Brian, and then it's like, oh, it was a joke. Like, that wasn't really what happened to Jesus. Like, it was a different story. So he was like, no, actually, like, it's pretty factual. Like, again, it's like it's mocking things, but at the same time, he's like, yeah, that was the guy that was killing this guy, and like that group was forming over here, and like all of that kind of stuff. Like, he was like, yeah, it actually sticks to a lot of, like, again, the facts in a really funny way. So I've held on to those nuggets.
It's definitely, it is a film written by a bunch of Oxbridge educated Britons who, you go through that process, you're going to learn a lot about, religious history. So they're not coming from a place of just wild ignorance.
Yeah. Who knows anybody like that? Who would want to know those people?
Oh,
I'm just kidding. I'm glad we lined up. So essentially we had two that lined up today, which was essentially shocking to me.
One of which you had seen.
One of which I may have seen. But nevertheless, I feel pretty good about it. I think as we look to our audience top 5, you're going to find that there's probably a little bit more alignment with your list. So looking to our audience, tied for 1 and 2, we have Monty Python's Life of Brian and The Last Temptation of the Christ. And then tied for 3 and 4, we have The King of Kings, which is a movie, and The Passion of the Christ.
I have actually not seen, assuming that's The Silent King of Kings, I have not seen it.
Okay, yeah, I missed it as well. And at number 5, it was like a 10-way tie for almost every other movie that was mentioned. But those were the ones that rose to the top. Our winner this week was Felix Gonzalez. I truly have no idea how to go about ranking these, so I've chosen to rank them in order of how hot I find the... I didn't read this beforehand. This is amazing. Okay, sorry, I had to pause there. How hot I find the actors playing... What's his name again? Pilate. Sorry. I wanted to say Pilates again. How actor playing Pilate. Also, I've only seen 4 of these movies, so I threw in Telly Savalas because he's hot. I got to look up Telly now. This is all I want to do after this episode.
He's not to my tastes, but I can absolutely see where he would be someone else's.
Okay. Well, you and I think, have kind of similar, so it's probably not mine either. But I'm going to still take a peek at Telly after this is over. So Felix had, at number 5, Risto Shapov from The Passion of the Christ. At 4, David Bowie in The Last Temptation of the Christ. 3, Telly in The Greatest Story Ever Told. 2, Victor Varconi in The King of Kings. And at number 1, just like you and I, Michael Palin in Monty Python's Life of Brian. Felix, shoot us an email at contact@alternateending.com to claim your free Amazon movie rental. And now, this is the time where I'm going to throw it out to the crowd. And if anybody here wants to share maybe their number 1, any sort of reactions, anything you want to share about the episode, we're going to throw it back to the crew that's out there. So if there is anybody out there that wants to share anything about their lists, now's your chance. MC, I'm going to throw it to you.
Yeah, so I, like many, had not seen a ton of movies with Pontius Pilate in them, but I decided to take the ones that I had seen and rank them from skinniest to heaviest. So David Bowie is my lowest, and then they get progressively more rotund from there. So my number 1, Peter Fry from the 1979 movie Jesus, I rank as my Pontius Pilate.
Your Pontius Pilate. Okay, I got that.
I like that.
Okay.
I like that.
When you say in order of size, are you talking about like magnitude or actual physical size?
like physical girth.
Oh, okay.
Hence Pontius.
Pontius. Yeah, that's what I thought. But then I was like, Carrie, are you missing this? There's a couple ways to think about it. That is great. Those are good. Mandy, I'm going to throw it to you. Share a little bit about your list.
So I basically did what Tim did and made a list of 5 movies I'd seen that I was pretty sure had Pontius Pilate in them. And they were ranked by how much I remembered that they had Pontius Pilate in them. It's a boring list, but my number one was the 1973 Jesus Christ Superstar, because I agree with Tim that movie bites the big one. But Barry Dennen as Pontius Pilate is actually really good.
Actually, I agree with that. He is... I think that some of the performances in that film are quite good, but I also feel like Pilate is probably the hardest role in that show to screw up anyway, so...
It's probably true, but he's still just... He was the original Pilate, and he's such a good Pilate. Mm-hmm. He's better on the original cast recording, but everything's better on the original cast recording, so we don't need to worry about that. Second thing, why Carrie's pick of Dogma is 100% legitimate, is that Bethany is responsible for killing God's earthly vessel such that humanity can be saved, which is exactly what Pilate needed to do in the Jesus story. Yeah. Had not thought about it that way before, but it's a legit choice. And finally, from Gavin, with whom I've been chatting this entire time, give me a compelling reason why I shouldn't slap Carrie with snakes on a plane.
I don't have a good reason at this point. Tim, do you?
My reason is that Snakes on a Plane is a fun movie to watch, and he should pick something that she will really, really hate.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't think I'd like Snakes on a Plane. I would
propose maybe Pasolini's Gospel According to Matthew. Might be the appropriate punishment for Carrie for this performance. And it's coming out on Blu-ray next month, the Pasolini box set, so I can even loan it to her because I'll be buying that.
I will see. Again, I go back to once he actually listens to this episode, he might change his mind. He might be like, wait, she's spot on.
I will say, and I certainly tried to play ball as much as I could. Again, I wasn't going to spend time watching 3-hour Bible epics, but I feel, Gavin, you gave this episode to Carrie, and you knew it was going to happen.
Yeah,
you just did.
You get what you deserve. That's my motto in life. Anybody else want to share lists, any questions, reactions, before I jump to, we're going to do just a little bit of a mini Tim Sack today, just a small one, just because we have you guys here. So I'll turn it, if you guys don't have any other ones that want to share your list, just if anyone has just any general Tim Sack questions they want to throw out there. We have a question in there. How about there? Tim, since the last episode, have you tried cottage cheese lasagna?
In fact, since the last episode, I have not had any form of lasagna with cottage cheese or otherwise. Although I will say, post that episode, I ran by some of the cottage cheese theories that had been voiced on it. And no one I talked to seemed as outraged by it as I had been. Which leads me to believe that all the people I know are bad people with bad taste in food.
I ate it immediately that night. It was one of the best choices I've ever made. So still have to add it to your list. Any other questions for Tim's Tiny Sack? All right, I'm going to throw another question out there. Which Looney Tunes character would be best suited for the role of Pontius Pilate?
And that question comes from Hope Arthur, so thank you for that. Which Looney Tunes character would be best suited for Pontius Pilate? That would have to be Yosemite Sam.
I was going to say the same thing. 100%. He's got to have that little beard. I bet Pontius even had that little long handlebar mustache.
He's got to be very angry and violent, but also completely feckless, and the Bugs Bunny Jesus just keeps outwitting him the whole time.
Agreed.
And that's the story.
Agreed.
And yes, MC, that is indeed the plot. Bugs Bunny is to be crucified, but he figures out a way to make Daffy crucified instead. It's like the reverse.
Could have been an option. I could have had that on here. Didn't think of it. But thank you for thinking of it. Mandy has a question. Carrie and Tim, what actor should play Pilate in a movie in which Pilate is the main character, and who should direct it?
Oh my.
I got one. You tell me who you think. I have one right out of the gate.
If you have one right out of the gate, go for it, because I still need to ponder it.
Who is the guy that's in Gladiator that gets stabbed in the back? Is it Seymour he stabs Russell Crowe, and so that's Russell Crowe's halfway down and limping and bleeding out, but still beats him. Is it Rufus?
I don't know Gladiator nearly well enough to be able to answer that question.
I think it's Rufus Sewell or
that
something
is an
like
actor.
that. And he has those kind of
very
like
well be Gladiator. I don't remember.
He's got like kind of bulbous eyes that kind of like poke out, and he's so Pontius-y. Like he's somebody I could totally see as a Pontius Pilate, especially with like a little fuzzy beard if he were to grow it in. I think that's who I'd pick. Who would be yours?
Okay. I'm trying to think. It needs to be someone British. I don't know why I'm so confident it needs to be someone British. Someone who's a little bit older and very authoritarian and can be both wry but also humorless. I think I'm going to go with Peter Capaldi.
Okay.
Who I can think of nothing, Carrie, that I know for a fact you've seen that he's in. He was one of the Doctors Who. He was in that recent Terrence Davis movie's Benediction.
Oh, sure. Peter
Who would
Capaldi.
Who would direct it? I mean, the go-to for any movie about religion would for me be Terrence Malick, but we are potentially going to be getting a Terrence Malick film with Pontius Pilate in it. Probably not this calendar year, but definitely next calendar year, because he's making A Life of Christ, and that's exciting to me. But if I can't have him, I would need to think about who I would want to direct it. Honestly, I don't have one.
Spielberg.
Maybe Ridley Scott, though. You brought
Spielberg.
up Gladiator, but Ridley Scott's good at period pieces, but he's also not good at like intelligent movies, so I don't know.
All right, last question. Gavin would like to know if you've ever seen a film version of The Master and Margarita.
I will honestly say, if there is such a thing as a film version of The Master and Margarita, this is the first I'm hearing about it, so no.
Okay. All right.
And I gather from your question that there is, so I will just say no, I have not.
You have not. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for your questions. In closing, we want to thank everybody for listening and those for joining. You can get out there on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, alternateending.com to find us. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes or Google, and don't forget about joining Patreon. Next time we'll be back. You'll look out on the site for our next episode, and we'll catch you next time.